So there is a difficulty. I mean, there are a considerable number of members of the public who actually think they should have direct elections for Chief Minister. The problem with that is we are a parliamentary democracy, and in a parliamentary democracy the Chief Minister must, in general, command a majority. If he doesn't command a majority in the Assembly, what is he going to do? How is he going to be able to function?
It's difficult. It's doubly curious because he doesn't actually get to choose his cabinet. He doesn't have a cabinet.
That's absolutely right. Let's say we had a directly elected Chief Minister who put up his nine nominees for ministers, and the States chose 9 other people who are politically very different from him. Well, he would be left in a ridiculous situation. One of the things people actually don't understand is that once the process of choice of ministers, the Chief Minister's put up his nominees and the States have decided, once the process is completed, what then happens is the Chief Minister has to indicate whether he's prepared to work with that group. And you could have an extraordinary situation in which the Chief Minister will say, well, actually we've chosen 9 people different to the people that I put forward, and I don't feel able to work with them, so I step down. And the whole process of election of Chief Minister will start again. There are issues in relation to what power the Chief Minister should have. At the moment he has influence, but he cannot actually directly control the individual ministers. If an individual minister says to him, I'm sorry Chief Minister, but I hear what you're saying, I hear what the Treasury is saying, but I'm still going to go ahead and do this. I'm going to bring amendments to the business plan so I get more money than the Council of Ministers has agreed for me. The Chief Minister cannot prevent that.
No, I don't know if a Chief Minister can bring a vote of no confidence in one of his own ministers. It hasn't.
Well, there's a procedure. Yeah. There's a procedure for removal, which of course has occurred once in the past in relation to that. But it is an interesting position. If people wanted to move towards an elected Chief Minister, then I think actually they would have to move towards having a presidential type of system, on the French model or on the American model or whatever.
Well, of course, the sort of things that the former bailiff has been discussing might lead Jersey towards that if some of his independent aspirations are fulfilled, because you might find...
Well, I can't speak for him, but I don't think you'll find that in his campaign that he is going to be advocating for full-blown independence. I mean, I can't speak for him, he must speak for himself. In
a simple word, is it realistic for Jersey, from your perspective?
It would be very difficult. It would be very, very difficult. The problem is this: can the UK speak on our behalf where there's a conflict of interests? And increasingly they've recognised that we should be able to negotiate our own treaties and things of that nature. But the problem is not just our relationship with the UK. The bigger problem, in my opinion, is that would be our relationship with Europe. Because if we are no longer coming under the umbrella of the UK, then we're going to have to decide either to be entirely in or entirely out. And neither of those is a very pleasant prospect.
Especially since the European Union, which I'm glad to say, is becoming much more a human rights orientated body, incorporating treaties into the very constitution of the European Union. And obviously Jersey's relationship with bodies like the United Nations. And I must say, one of the things which saddened me very much in your Home Affairs role is that you had to virtually drop the anti-discrimination legislation. And one of the interesting things, you haven't got rid of it, because if you should happen to be Chief Minister, at the moment it's heading to be the Chief Minister's responsibility, so you'll find it on your plate again, if I'm...
No, I don't think that's right. I think it's gone to the Social Security Minister.
I meant generally the issue of human rights and anti-discrimination as a general.
Yeah, the difficulty with that is firstly that people think it does a lot more than it actually does, and it's in fact much more limited in this operation than people realise. The main areas in which discrimination works in relation to employment opportunities and in relation to availability to services, in other words, to go to a restaurant, not be turned away because it's kind of your skin or whatever. So it's more limited in operation than people realise. The second difficulty was that I couldn't persuade my colleagues on the Council of Ministers that it was sufficiently high priority to warrant additional funding. We tried to find ways of doing it more cheaply. And the third area of difficulty that I had, frankly, was that we just didn't have internally within the department the necessary levels of skill to take it forward. The Home Affairs Department core is very, very small. It actually consists of Stephen Ostovici, who's the Chief Executive, it's a lady who deals with assisting me on ministerial decisions and advising and researching and so on, a receptionist, a lady who deals with building a safer society as a project, people who specialise in finance matters, people who specialise in employment matters, and we now have one other person working part-time who is actually assisting on implementing the CSR process. So we have no specialists. And so if a department like this gets involved in relation to a major social area, where I can't say, well, over to you police officers, over to you fire service, over to you custom immigration, over to you prison governor to pilot it for me, there are difficulties. So I actually found myself at various stages in this actually trying to do it personally, running the project myself, which wasn't right. So there were practical difficulties in relation to that, and I'm pleased we were able to go ahead with it.
Well, the commitment is there, but I will believe it when I see it, speaking personally. If I'm allowed to.
Oh no, the commitment is genuine. I mean, I think that the key issue in relation to that became the issue of age. Because once you got to a situation where we were going to have to adjust Social Security legislation in order to have an older retirement age, then it became more important to bring in, as part of that package, the age discrimination stuff. I think that was a key issue in the minds of my colleagues, and a recognition that the time had now come to do it. But I say, one of the difficulties I've inherited with Home Affairs is that my predecessor took on a number of projects because she was particularly enthusiastic in them, and yet actually we just don't have the specialist knowledge and expertise to really run them effectively.
If you become Chief Minister, would it be your wish to give human rights a bigger priority, or is it?
It's my wish to give social legislation a higher priority, because there is undoubtedly a tension in relation to this. There are certain elements of legislation that we have to do because of treaty responsibilities. I mean, for instance, there's things in the areas of fisheries and agriculture where we end up having to do very detailed stuff to comply with the European thing, because part of the Access Treaty required us to do that. So you get this legislation which is very technical and complicated, which has to be done. Then again, the demands of the finance industry, legitimate demands of the finance industry for creating new types of corporate body, new types of company, limited partnership, whatever, in order to remain competitive and to develop new products and so on, also sucks in huge amounts of resources. The EDD minister is very often presenting these things. But what happens there, interestingly, is that there is a great deal of assistance from the legal profession, the specialists in that who work alongside. Now, when it comes to social legislation, and for example is the discrimination law, we actually have to, in my view, develop a mechanism of involving expertise from the private sector, people of social conscience who actually understand these things and want to work alongside government, because we're just not going to achieve the same sort of results. And there's a mass of different pieces of legislation in this area. I mean, there's mental health law, take as an example, where work has been done on and off for years and years, and yet it's not come to fruition. The 1864 group are revising criminal procedure, which the former Attorney General chaired, which I was a member of, that got stuck as well. Yeah, there's important improvements. So what I would hope to achieve is a better balance, recognising that we have to have this business-orientated legislation in place, but actually recognising also that we need to be catching up on the social